I've got my glamorous assistant, Helen, who's one of the other careers consultants here, who's sitting next to me, and she's been going through some of the questions. Right, I might have to ask Dan to come in on this one, because one of the questions says, is it possible to get the slides afterwards? Because somebody missed the first 10 minutes. You missed the best bits. In fact, there's 2 people answered that. Dan, are you still online at all?
Can you hear me, Elizabeth?
I can hear you, yeah.
Yes, we are going to be making the entire presentation available on YouTube in video format, so you'll be able to watch the presentation at any point in the future.
Okay. Another question which has come through, are graduate schemes generally for people under 25? Well, that's an interesting one. I would guess that all employers would tell you that obviously they don't discriminate on grounds of age because that's illegal now. But you and I know that people have a kind of a template in their mind, ideas of the kinds of people that they're expecting to see. So I think if you are over 25, then what you have to do is convince them, work hard to convince them that you wouldn't have a problem with working alongside people who are 21 years old. You wouldn't have a problem possibly working for people who are younger than you. It comes to us all eventually, some sooner than others. I think I managed to get to about 40 before I had to work for somebody who was younger than me, but it eventually happens. So I think it's about a general attitude and approach. And one of the problems that a lot of postgrads have is that they give the impression that really they're looking to move fast, they're looking to start at a higher level, and that really does scupper their chances of getting into an entry scheme. So it's more about, are you prepared to go back and operate alongside other people who are really just starting? One of the other problems you might get if you're over 25 is that they think, well, actually you've got an awful lot of skills already and we're wanting to train you up and you're just going to get bored. So it may be that some of these graduate schemes aren't really suitable for you if you've got quite a lot of experience. That's where going for direct entry is probably going to be more appropriate. Okay. Right. Let's have a look at what is the best website to look for direct entry private sector jobs. Well, I've got to say LinkHigher, haven't I, obviously. I mean, I am actually quite impressed by the fact that LinkHigher has started up, because we've long needed a national site for private sector jobs which is aimed at postgraduates. So obviously I've got to say LinkHigher is the first place to look. But there are many others. I think it's really, if you have a particular type of job in mind, it's a very good idea to check and see if there are specialist websites where those kinds of jobs are generally advertised. There's a good website, the Prospects website, which is www.prospects.ac.uk, and they've got a series of career profiles for a wide range of different types of graduate plus level work. If you look under those career profiles, it has details of sources of information, and that's probably the first place I would look to see if there were any special sector related jobs websites which might help you. Another one which I do like, I'll be honest, is one of these kind of meta sites which hoovers up vacancies from lots of different sources, and that's called CareerJet, Career, J-E-T, I think .co.uk, although there is a worldwide site. It seems to be one of the ones which I go for when somebody comes up with the impossible request of, I want jobs in material science for a graduate in South Africa, please. And it's normally come up trumps with at least a few jobs, so that's another one which is worth having a look at. Okay. Right, and for academic jobs, I've got one of the best sites for academic jobs. Well, a couple which I'd go for. If you're looking for UK academic jobs, then jobs.ac.uk is very extensive. There's also the new kid on the block, findapostdoc.com, which comes from findaphd.com, and that's something worth looking at. But what I would suggest is if you have a look at the Academic Careers website, which I mentioned earlier, so manchester.ac.uk/academic career, there's a whole section on finding jobs. Okay. So that gives you details of, not only for the UK, but for internationally, what are the ways that academic careers are developed, and how can you find jobs across the world. Another one about age. Apparently when I mentioned age over 25, I was talking about academic or non-academic jobs. I was talking about non-academic jobs, obviously. I think that most academics are over 25. I'd love to meet one who was under 25. I'd be extraordinarily impressed. And I bet there are a few, but they're very much in the minority. So I don't think age counts against you if you're looking for academic jobs. Until you maybe get, later on in your career. To be honest, it may be that I suspect that even academics will be not so much worried about your age, but how long you've been doing research. And if it's taking you a long, long time to get enough papers, to get enough publications together, to be able to go for academic jobs, that's not going to be desperately impressive. So age could possibly even count against you for academia. Okay, let's have another one, which is, everybody's talking about timing. So I worked for 7 years before returning to academia to do a PhD. Should I put this first on my CV? That's a really interesting one. If you're going for non-academic jobs and you've got a lot of non-academic experience before doing your PhD, I think it really depends on whether the work that you were doing before your PhD is relevant to the jobs that you want to do now. I think you can always find some value from that work that you did prior to doing your PhD for non-academic jobs later. There are always things, even if it was fairly routine work, there are things that you can say that you've learned which are going to be useful. I think this is going to be one of these hybrid CVs where you start out maybe with something like a key achievement section, or something which allows you to refer to the fact that you've got extensive experience maybe in the industry that you're interested in, and also refers to the fact that you've just done a PhD, so you've got additional. Okay. So I think it's one of these ones where I try and refer to it on the first page, but you might want to do the PhD first if that's the most recent thing you've got. It's a bit of a combination between recent, making sure that you point out that you haven't been doing nothing for the last 3 or 4 years, which it could come across as that if you put your previous work experience first. They might wonder what you've been doing for the last 4 years. So I think trying to tell the story maybe with a key achievement section or some kind of profile at the start would help you if you've got a more complex background, having worked for a PhD. Okay, I'm just looking at one which says, from Francis, talking about the comment on salary and pay. It happens that every interview panel asks the interviewees about salary expectation. So isn't it appropriate to give an amount that difference-related companies offer for similar salaries? I'm not quite sure what you're talking about there in terms of, is it appropriate to give, what are the kind of salaries? So what companies are advertising? I think if possible, try and find out, if you can find out what other companies are advertising, that would be great. That's often not easy. I think you need some inside information from that. Maybe if you've got somebody who already works for that organisation, you could ask about what are the kind of salary ranges. In the UK, it's not really the done thing to ask about an individual job, individual salary for somebody, but maybe salary ranges would be worth looking at. I think as long as you don't go over the top, pitching higher rather than lower, if you're at the point of negotiating on salary, isn't going to do you any harm. Maybe with a bit of a get-out clause. So you could be saying things like, well, I understand that a lot of other jobs of this type are in the range of 30 to 35,000. Now, I realise I don't have much experience, but I believe that I can come in and deliver a great job very quickly, and I would like to think that I'd be up at the top end of that scale. If they come back and say, well, we're not sure about that, you might be prepared to go further down, but say, well, okay, that's fair, but I would want to feel confident that once I come in and deliver the results that you want, that I will be able to move quickly towards the top end of that scale. It's often done on a no guarantees, but you've started to set the impression that you're somebody who's ambitious and you know your own worth, and hopefully that will help move you up the scale. A lot of people do feel quite uncomfortable about the idea about negotiating on salary, but if you don't ask, you probably won't get. If you go for the lower end of the scale, they will certainly want to go for the lower end.